Let's start this with a simple statement. If it starts with God, it finds its way to victory. If it starts with me, it usually collapses into defeat. Whether you're a person of faith or you simply believe in a bigger purpose, the principle stays relevant. If your foundation is bigger than your own ambition, you're more resilient in hard times. But if your entire mission is self-driven or rooted in personal glory alone, chances are it's going to crumble as soon as you hit a roadblock. Now I want to start this with a story. Let's start with the story of Samson. There's an ancient story about a geezer named Samson. He's known for superhuman strength and wild journeys. But the biggest twist is how he came into the world. His mother wasn't able to have children, yet an angel appeared with a message. You will have a son who's set apart for a special role. She had to follow specific guidelines for raising him because he wasn't just for her, he was for an entire nation. Right away, we see a story that begins with God, with supernatural intervention. This sets Samson apart from the start. Now, typically you'd assume that if something was launched with divine promises, it's going to be smooth sailing forever, right? But real life and in the story doesn't unfold so neatly. So even with a miraculous start, you can still have messed up choices and messed up middle chapters. 1,000 enemies with a donkey's jaw. Let's jump ahead to one of Samson's most talked about feats. He finds himself attacked by a mob of enemies, the Philistines. He's unarmed, so he grabs the nearest object, which happens to be a donkey's jawbone. And somehow he manages to defeat 1,000 adversaries. That's a pretty good story. Now, the moment alone is a testament to an improbable victory. By all logic, a donkey's jawbone should not do the trick, but with God's power, it's enough. The problem surfaces right after Samson wins. Does he praise the Lord for saving him? Does he thank a divine hand for making that donkey jawbone hold up? No, he just pats himself in the back, focusing on the jawbone and his own might. Essentially, he's saying, look what I did, highlighting the ridiculous object in his hand. He manages to forget the biggest source that's actually behind the miracle. Now, we all have our jawbone moments. In modern life, maybe you get a dream job after a fluke conversation, or you patch up a broken relationship through a random coincidence that you didn't orchestrate. But once it's done, it's so easy to tell a story that places all the credit on us, or some random quirky factor, rather than acknowledging the unseen guidance or grace that actually made it happen. So we end up going around celebrating the jawbone instead of the one who actually empowered it. So if you catch yourself bragging about your brilliant solution at work, forgetting the spark of insight that might have come from a friend, or inspired from a moment you can't truly claim as your own, or maybe you keep praising the tool like a new software you used when the real hero was the synergy of your entire team. It's easy to highlight the method or your own skill and forget the real reason you actually overcame the odds. Victory does not mean you won't feel exhausted. Now here's where the story gets a bit more interesting. Even though Samson triumphs, after the battle he's left absolutely drained. He's parched, he's physically worn, he's emotionally frayed. Now you see these parallels in everyday life. You managed to score a big success. Maybe you finished a marathon, you completed a report, you survive a tough family crisis, and ironically you end up feeling a shell of yourself afterwards. Now people around you might cheer, thinking you're on a high, but inside you might be thinking, is this it? I'm so worn out, I can barely celebrate. It's possible to win on the outside but feel depleted on the inside. And if you think your success is entirely self-made, you might find yourself saying, what's the point if I'm left feeling like this? And in Samson's case, he had to refocus on the true source. Eventually he hits a point where he stops praising the donkey and he calls out to God. I've done this big thing and I'm now about to die of thirst. Help me. That pivot where he acknowledges a higher power unlocks a new miracle. Water springs up from a hollow place in the ground where no one expected it. He drinks and he's refreshed. The moral? When Samson's focus flips from "I did this" to "you helped me," everything changes. The same pattern can hold true for us. When we realize that our day, our career, or our relationships started with a bigger spark than ourselves, maybe you call it God, maybe you call it destiny, maybe you call it a higher power, that's where we find a renewed source of energy when we're parched. If we were only relying on ourselves, our willpower has an expiration date. When me, myself, and I falls flat, we've all tried projects that revolve around personal ambition. Nothing wrong with ambition, but if the entire foundation is my glory, it can crumble at the first obstacle. You might do well for a while, like using a donkey's jawbone effectively, but eventually you get cornered by a big adversity. Then who do you turn to? If your entire success is pinned on your own personal brilliance, you might find yourself stuck. And like Samson, dehydrated. Even a good beginning can get off track. Samson's life started in a powerful, divine way, but that doesn't mean he was on autopilot to success. We can see he made questionable decisions along the way. Just because a relationship or business idea had an amazing start, like love at first sight or perfect investor interest, it doesn't mean we won't face serious hurdles. The difference is, if your foundation is anchored in something more enduring than your ego, you can correct the course when you go off track. Samson eventually remembered to call on God. Even if he did so late, it was enough to get water from an unexpected source. For us, it can mean returning to our guiding principles or faith after we spent too long praising our jawbone of personal skill. It's about realigning with the original spark that set us on the path. Overcoming the victory hangover. I'm sure, like myself, you've probably felt super proud of your achievement, but you crash soon after. You ride that high and suddenly, bam, you're left wondering, why do I feel so empty? Turns out that emptiness can be a reminder to look beyond yourself. Back to what actually matters. If your success was all about you, no wonder the top feels lonely. But if you've climbed for a bigger purpose, that's where you find new energy and direction, even after the celebration ends. Let's take Samson, for instance. Right after his big win, he's dying of thirst. He's basically saying, God, you've gave me this victory. Are you going to let me kneel over now? That honest cry opens up a whole new supply that he didn't see coming. It's like a reminder that after big wins, a little humility can lead to fresh ideas, surprising connections, or actual physical help from places you never even expected. Recenter on what really got you there. Here's the heart of it. When your journey starts with God, you can stumble through challenges and still come out on top. But if it's all about your ego, or whatever concoction in your head that you've made up, you might score a short-lived win, but you risk ending up totally drained. Samson's story with that random donkey's jawbone shows us that seemingly impossible victories can happen. Still, it's a mistake to pat yourself in the back. Instead, we should acknowledge the power, the deeper power that actually made it possible. So if you ever catch yourself celebrating a jawbone, maybe it's a lucky break or a clever trick you used, take a second to think. Was there a bigger arrangement at play? Maybe that chance meeting or brilliant idea didn't just appear out of thin air. And when you see it that way, you move from bragging about your own cleverness to feeling genuine gratitude. Next time you face a big challenge, remember that your donkey's jawbone might just be something ordinary or maybe a bizarre resource, but if you believe there's a stronger force guiding you, you'll be in a better place to handle what comes next. You might even find that boost, the boost of energy you need in a place that you never expected. Because in the end, no matter how rough the path is, if you keep your focus on that higher purpose, you'll likely find your way And you'll find that your story ends in victory, even if it wanders through some tough spots along the way. Peace.